Well, I wanted to welcome to the Dig Show Alexander von Westenholz. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been really looking forward to this for quite a long time. I've got a few questions today about your myriad of videos of various topics about metal detecting, being outdoors, but mostly about how we take those objects and, you know, we then try and document those or tell the people what's happened or what you think might have happened. So, when you dig up an object, there's often a whole story behind it. And I believe you might have brought one with you today. Can you walk us through your process for, researching the history of a find and figuring out its place in the past? What gets you going
Yeah,
with that?
absolutely. I mean, I do. I think metal detecting is a very interesting hobby in a way, and I'm certainly not the first or the last whose knowledge of history has just gone through the roof as a result of metal detecting.
It's not just about, what did the Romans do for us? It's about what does assimilation mean? What
Mm.
does Rome mean? Is Rome a series of provinces that suddenly decided to team up, or was it one province that managed to
Oh
overtake the
God,
others? How does
that's a
you know?
tricky
It's
question.
no, isn't it? No, it's not so much a question, but it's just like it's a piece that inspires storytelling, and we can
Mm,
take the same motives and talk about it with the
mm,
likes of Wessex and things like that.
mm. Well, this is it. I
Interesting.
mean,
Yeah,
it just takes one object that you know nothing about. For example, a Saxon coin. You
go
know
for it.
nothing about it at all. You've got an idea it might be Saxon, so you can look in books. I mean, for I don't have it on me for anything post-Roman and Celtic. Spink, Book of English Coins is your starting point. You need to have a vague idea, but once you've got your vague idea and you've and help with from the internet, and let's say you now know it's Ethelred II. And for
Mm.
most of us, I think there's very few metal detectors who aren't now thinking, who's Ethelred II? I wasn't taught him at school. I don't know anything about him. And before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole. You're learning about Ethelred II. You're learning about his father, who came after him, the fact that he was one of the
Mm.
sort of last Saxon kings before there was a little bit of a Danish sort of segment, and then you go back to sort of Harold briefly, rather Edward Confessor, then Harold, and then you're
Yes.
into sort of the later medieval period. But and that's not just with one coin. That's everything you find. You might find a little medieval brooch or a segment of, and before you know
Yeah.
it, you're looking at what period of the medieval time that was, and you're learning about jewelry before, after, as much as you want. You can just go on forever and ever.
Yeah, yeah. Show us the stator coin, the
Oh,
Celtic unit that you mentioned earlier on.
Chris has an idea.
Sorry, guys.
Uh,
Just
uh,
before that, he said
I
he's
mean, I'm very fortunate. I found a few of these, but this
yeah.
was literally found yesterday. It's
Wow, look at
wooden
that.
wings, even though it doesn't look very like a wooden wings because the detail on the reverse. I mean, I challenge you to find a wooden wings
Mm.
with that detail. It is extraordinary. Now that they reckon is 20 to 50 BC or the 50 to 20 BC. So you're looking at
Really?
probably 100 years before the Romans definitely came over, on a little sort of holiday, little day trip with Caesar. And then you have to
Absolutely.
wait
Caesar
another
did.
100 years before they came over properly. But there's no doubt, and everyone agrees, that there's obviously been plenty of trade between England and the continent. And there were plenty of Roman coins and gold and silver coins in Belgium, or what's now Belgium and France. They would have been
Mm.
making their way over to England. So there's things that they could have copied, things that give them ideas. I'm
Yep.
sure Republican Roman denarii were coming over, and things that we find now
Greek.
in fields which are 100 BC, maybe 200 BC, where they might have been
Hmm.
kept by Romans coming over from later because the silver content was so high. But equally, they might have been traded. There might have been a French sailor come over
Yeah.
and bought some bread or
Yep.
something. Who knows?
Question on that. So when you're going out metal detecting,
Mm.
do you are you looking for field boundaries and patterns that just put it in the context of that Celtic unit? Is this something where you looked at a field shape and you're like, that looks a little bit like a Brythonic field
No, Chris,
system?
very, very rarely. I don't like to look at a field like that. Like to have a completely blank canvas. If you're
Hmm.
suddenly finding hot areas or interesting things that are turning up nicer things, then that's when you go back and you start looking at your LiDAR, looking at your field maps and stuff. I think if you actually, the better something is on paper, the fewer things you'll find, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the best Roman campsite in the area here, nothing shows up on Lido at all.
Of all the discoveries you've made, which ones do you think, in terms of era, say your Celtic, your early medieval, later medieval, even post-medieval, which ones do you think tell your audience on your channel, which we will be linking to, of course, guys, after the interview, which of your finds gives you a best opinion of how people lived in the past? Just by what you're looking at as part of a coin. You hold it up and you go, what does that tell me about the past? Which era does it best?
I suspect the era that does it best, not necessarily what excites me the most, but it is the Roman era, because if you start understanding what their legends mean, I mean, it was a great big, from Augustus onwards. In fact, I think he was the first to really push it out. A massive propaganda machine. It was the way of getting your message as emperor. No televisions and no internet, that goes without saying. But if you were a peasant in England holding up a coin which said, the wonderful Augustus, conqueror of the Dalmatians or whatever it might be,
yes.
and he's so generous to his people with I don't know, the god Pax on the back or something, then that coin is going to the far reaches, going from up to Scotland. Well, it wouldn't have done quite in Augustus's time, but let's say 2nd century, 3rd century AD. You're covering an awful lot of land with your coins.
Yes,
and if you do have a coin saying, I am wonderful and I conquered the Germans and I was consul for the 3rd time, and here is me, whatever it is. I mean, it's incredible. So that, I think, for that actual passing on, or a message that you want to convey, I think the Roman period.
Absolutely. Metal detecting can contribute to wider understanding of history. You've told us about that earlier on. How do you see your channel help society appreciate this heritage? I mean, you obviously put quite a lot of effort into showing people where things come from. How do you do it best?
Do quite a lot of effort, actually. If I find anything interesting, I tend to bring you back to this desk, and we'll discuss it, and I'll show you the research, and I'll show you why I think it's a Saxon brooch, and then I'll get the Hattat book out, and I'll show you similar Hattat brooches. Annoyingly, it's a bit like being an antique dealer. Quite often you buy a piece of furniture or something you think's wonderful, and you've still got it 20 years later because no one else does. Sometimes I get really excited about things, and I take you back here, and I'll show you my Saxon clothes hook.
Tell me. Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, that's just amazing. But I look on my YouTube analytics, and there'll be a sort of drop off while I'm waxing lyrical about the fact that the Saxons used these, and then the Tudors used these, and there wasn't much in between. It's about 200 or 300 years, perhaps even 400 years, when no one used dress hooks. So you've got that one, which is Saxon, and actually, I had it here a second ago. I've got a Tudor one. And they were fashionable in the Tudor times, and they were fashionable with the Saxons, but no one in between. But then I look on my YouTube analytics, and everyone's going. They won't really want to get you back with your machine finding nice things, not finding rubbish. They want you to find nice things.
Yeah, well,
but,
you know what?
Enough people like this section for me to keep going, and I love doing them. So I'll bring anything I find. I bring you back here, and we'll discuss it. I found this about 4 years ago. I wasn't sure what it was. And then about 50 meters away from it, in pasture, I found that. And that's a really cool sort of what they call sort of raven bird buckles, M-shaped buckles with the buckle.
So you've got the other bit. Okay.
Isn't that extraordinary? I can't bear it when people say, someone found a fragment of something really quite rare, and they go, well, get back in the field and find the rest of it. I mean, the chances are you're not. You're very rarely. But in this case, literally 3 years later, I found the other bit. And as soon as I found that, I knew exactly what that bit was.
Yeah.
As soon as I found that, I thought, I've got the other bit to that. And I stopped metal detecting. I came home. I was about an hour away. And I dug this bit out. And I put it, what it's like doing a jigsaw.
Amazing.
So something like that, I get very excited about. I mean, quite often you find something in the field that is caked with mud, but really rather good. That's a medieval box buckle. For excitement value, once you've convinced yourself it's not a Lucozade bottle top, that glint of gold, I mean, that you can't not get excited about that. That, I suspect, is what you dream of every time you go out. You just want that tiny bit of gold, and it's not a bottle top, and it's not a piece of horrible aluminium. And as soon as you, like that happened with the coin yesterday, when it is gold, it's that's the height. And I don't believe when people go, oh, it's not important to me, I just love finding history. No, it's fun finding really lovely things too, but I put a lot of time in, and I spent a lot of time finding good places. And I really do feel for those who don't have permissions. I keep saying, just keep trying. One will lead to another. You'll be okay. Just keep trying, because once you get one or two, you'll strike. You might take a bit of time, but you will find those spots. And those spots, you've got to work really hard, and you will find stuff. It's not all luck.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a really good point. And you mentioned about other people who might not have found the fields that they would want or whatnot, or haven't got any permissions at all. Let's put it simple. We don't want to string people along or anything, but there's no harm at all, and it's actually quite useful to, when you're asking a landowner for permission to something, say, look, I believe there's a chance that such and such might be here. I'd like to give it a go, and I'd also like to invite you to hear from me what I've found, and so on. Give them.
Chris, I often say I've got 2 spare detectors. Won't take me too long with a day as to get you sort of up and running. 3/4 of an hour. I can get you sort of, where you sort of need to be to start. And if anyone else wants to join me, they can. So I think that can actually really work. So do you have children?
Absolutely.
Do you have anyone who's old enough to do it? I'll teach them how to detect. They can come out with me. And people really like that.
Absolutely, yeah. History is a currency. I mean, they say jokingly that there's no money in archaeology. Fair enough, but for the amateurs on the ground who are engaging with the community, and you never know that you might be planting a seed in someone's head. They'll go and tell someone else in their family, and could lead to more permissions. But secondly, they might go, "Well, hang on a second, what was that Bronze Age spear you have in that tractor cab? Let's go send that down to the local museum." You are having a knock-on beautiful effect. Yeah, good shout there, Alexander. I like that. I think it's a good shout. I think Lincoln's a good way, because we go back through history, and Lincoln and York being as important as they are. I think you could take the Roman model and just overlay it over the top of the OS 1980 map and go, it's about the same. Look at the road systems. Look at the road systems around Winchester. Look at the road systems around, I don't know, even the eastern marshes of East Anglia, where Sutton Hoo is. There's not many roads you could put at Sutton Hoo.
I do honestly think that one of the best places in the world to detect is probably the UK.
Yes,
and the best part of the UK is probably the east side, because you've got the Saxon and the Viking influence. And I think that in Europe, in fact, probably the best place in the world to detect is probably the UK.
Yes, for fines, and I think if you go for different eras, I would suspect that just a little bit west of London, towards the Winchester area, would be the best place for your earlier Plantagenet finds and things like that. Brythonic, Celtic stuff. I mean, different. This is the wonderful thing about, guys, this isn't a thing about how wonderful Britain is, but Wales, South Wales, is very, very different to North Wales, and the bit between Wales and England, the marches, that is. You'll find that there is an awful lot of finds to be found there, and it's just because of which leaders were around at the time and what was their goals. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else watching has. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Metal detecting is amazing fun, not just because you find it, but because you can say to someone, "What have you found today?" and they'll go and they'll get the box out. And as a good friend of mine once said, "Oh, the box means business." just lastly, show us two more cool finds from where you are.
These you've got to be a bit careful of. I'm doing a video on these, because they're just lead discs, but they're more than that. They're Saxon brooches. They're lead Saxon brooches. So both of these were folded over, and you could be forgiven for just putting them in your lead scrap, but don't, because they're not that common. These.
No, wonderful.
And they both got hinges and where pleats would have been on the back. That gives them away.
Wow.
And I presume they would have been enamel. Don't you think they would have been painted? I mean, they wouldn't have been that colour, would they? Would they have been gilded even? Wonder.
It would be a cheaper way of creating it, because we all know that Saxon, bronze and so on, and copper, it's finished to a variety of standards, just like the Romans did. So yeah, if they could put something in lead and then dip it in some whatever they wanted to, why not? Can't see. And also, all of that would have come off because of the lead oxidization and so on. So good shout on that one, Alexander. I'm going to wrap it there, but it was very, very useful talking with you. I loved it. Any final thoughts before I plug you?
No, I think that was I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
No problem at all.